This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. You are in the right spot if you want to accelerate sales. I am here with Mr. Accelerate Sales himself, Steve Sienkiewicz. How are you, my friend?
Great, Dave. Good to be with you. Good to speak with you today.
So tell us a little bit about your professional journey and what brought you to the specific, specialized kind of sales consulting that you do today. And then we'll talk about what that is. But give us the quick professional backstory.
The backstory is working in both the transportation and the technology space for over 20 some odd years, helping companies really go drive commercial initiatives. Most of that had to do with working with the sales teams to try to get new products to market and seeing what worked and how we could better support them to get there where they need to be. And after a 10-year career leading strategic sales teams and global account teams, decided to break off on my own. And I've been doing that now for 4 or 5 years and having a blast working with clients, trying to help them get to the next level.
Now, let's talk about your secret sauce, because I know one of the things that you talk about, write about, teach about, and consult about is moving away from transactional selling and moving to a much deeper strategic level of account management, account development, and making a good customer into a great customer, into a lifetime customer, into a flagship customer. Walk us through sort of what the difference is or what the problems are with the transactional selling mindset, and then how companies plug into your expertise to move away from that.
Yeah, good question. You need to take a step back and say, what's driving in the B2B sales world? What are some of the changes out there that requires a change in approach? And you've got obviously the globalization of markets in the economy. You've got information and communication technologies. You've got professionalization of procurement and really a shift in how customers perceive value. And with those underpinnings, with those trends occurring in the marketplace, suppliers need to really rethink how they're going to go add value to customers and how they engage them to create that differentiation. And so if they really want to create that value, to gain additional share of wallet, to win with the winners, they need to be more purposeful in segmenting their customer base and realizing that creating customer-centric processes and approaches is going to be the way that you're going to engage large customers. There's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions over the last, as there always is, but particularly with the last 6 or 8 years, with the economy doing quite well. Large customers have gotten more dominant in their space. And so suppliers to those particular attractive large customers need to be more thoughtful in how they really engage with those customers and enable their sales and marketing teams to strike up the conversations to go build that going forward.
And one of the things that I really like about your whole approach and your whole discipline that you share with sales leaders, and it's even on the homepage of your website, you say there are no quick fixes or shortcuts. I know a lot of sales leaders, sales managers, even some C-suite people just wave their hand at sales and go, well, just fix it. Just fix it. As if it's some simple 1 or 2 step process. And you have this 9-step, multi-layered, multi-phase approach that when you first engage with a sales organization, you audit, you measure, you benchmark, you look for areas where they're strong, look for areas where they're weak in this 9-point model. Can you walk us through what that roadmap looks like so that people can, even as they're listening, even assess their own sales organization and figure out, gosh, I might have a gap here, I might have a gap there?
So first off, many companies, which you alluded to, want to put in key or strategic account programs in place over instead of thinking through how do we drive sales performance at a higher level that we're at. Because segmenting off as part of your customer base and wanting to deal with them more on a partnership basis is very resource intensive. And, probably 80% of these initiatives of engaging with large customers fail after a couple of years because they haven't organized properly and they haven't learned the lessons and best practices somewhere else. So the experience working with clients and having led these organizations in the past, I've come up with a three-stage approach that the evolution of an effective customer-centric key account program generally go through. And the first stage is really driving alignment. Second is focusing on how do we advance opportunities and relationships. And third is how do we really accelerate and really go drive significant value for customers in their value chain and really go drive our top line growth. So align, advance, and accelerate. And really in that first stage, Dave, what alignment is about is any key account or strategic account program is about trying to go execute your business growth strategy and your sales strategy. Are you aligned with how you're going to go deliver that value to your customers? Is it clear why this program is needed at all beyond just a transactional sale or just regular selling? Number one, you want to be aligned internally to that growth strategy. You need to also be aligned with your customers relative to what they're looking to achieve. And you need to be aligned internally with your support teams because key account management is a contact sport. It's also a team sport. It isn't about the salesperson, it's about the organization. So first stage is really how do we go drive the business growth strategy? Second element of that is teaming, is talent. These are different roles. And what I mean by that is many of the strategic account folks have strong business acumen, are great collaborators, good communicators, problem solvers. They lead projects. They identify business cases. This is not the profile of the entry-level transactional salesperson. How do you attract that talent? How do you develop that talent? And how do you enable that talent through coaching, tools, training, and the rest going forward? And the third part of that alignment phase is really, are you aligned with your customers? Do you have an account planning process with your customers to talk to them about what they're trying to accomplish? What are their strategic initiatives? Do they want to partner with you in a different way beyond a transactional arm's length relationship? You'd be amazed, Dave, how many customers they have identified customers and put labels on them in terms of key or strategic accounts. And they've given individuals job titles, but that's as far as it goes. And what I've seen is something which really just key account management in name only. Why does that matter? It's wasteful to the selling organization. It's a waste of time for the customer organization. And you see turnover and frustration with individual salespeople. And up until the current headwinds that we were facing, you wanted to make sure you were retaining good talent. And you need to enable and support that. So that's what that alignment phase is really about, is with your growth strategy internally for the account management team, and third, with your customers.
What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Let me ask you, because I think I've heard you say this before, and it's a fascinating concept that a lot of sales leaders and a lot of business leaders should pay attention to. I think you once said there are some key accounts of yours that they are not even aware that they're a key account. So if you said, hey, do you think you're a key account for company X? They would be like, well, gosh, I don't know. I mean, we buy stuff from them, but I'm not sure if they would consider us a key account. And so when a key account is not even aware that they're a key account of yours, there's a whole world of problems or steps really that you have totally missed, totally overlooked, lots of latent opportunity there. But when you're saying, hey, let's have a conversation with these accounts, let's figure out what do they really want? What are the outcomes that are important to them? Where else, how else, why else can we be serving them on a deeper, more meaningful level? Talk about that level of benign neglect where a key account doesn't even know they're a key account and how we can start to fix that problem.
Yeah, so that burden falls back on both the business development person as well as the sales executive who oversees the program. You got to get away from superficiality, get away from labels, and say, are we really engaging with our customers on what's important to them? And particularly with the current headwinds that we're facing with the current coronavirus situation, you really want to reassess what customers have we chosen to invest in or say we want to invest in, and are they still the right customers? How have their initiatives changed given the impact to the economy in their particular markets, and make sure that we're having thoughtful communications with multiple threads within that organization so that we're allocating our resources properly and they value what we have to offer. There's nothing wrong with many of your large customers just dealing with them on a transactional basis. You can have a good book of business with them, not have to do anything extra. Really, with key customers, we see the upside potential to go impact their business and how it can benefit our organization as well. So having those conversations and making sure that you have a good composite view of your customer of, is this worth the investment of our time? Because that value is going to be there for both parties.
I have like 17 questions just about this part of our conversation, but I'll try and ask them one at a time because there may be 17 thoughts, only one mouth. When you say in the middle of this coronavirus crisis that we're in, because we're recording this right now, sort of in the midst of this situation, would you say it's a barrier to smart key account management strategies to only be reaching out to a customer or a prospect when you have something to sell? Because now that you've trained them, the only time I hear from Steve is when he wants to pitch me something new. The only time I hear from Steve is when he wants to upsell me or cross-sell me. Is this the time to have a non-selling but strategic conversation with our best clients, maybe even as a door opening strategy to some new clients and customers with no sales agenda other than wanting to help and wanting to serve? And then how do you recommend folks go about doing that to lower a prospect's shields, if you will, and say, no, this really is a conversation about me helping you, not me selling you?
Well, the way you asked the question, absolutely. I mean, you need to continue to check in. This is really an acid test for the quality of the relationship that you currently have with your customer. Do you call them up and just say, hey, how are you doing? How's your team doing? How have things changed? How have your priorities changed? If you need anything, just please reach out. And that's showing the empathy of their particular situation, that they have other priorities. That's where, with your most important customers, reach out to them. How are they pivoting? How are they shifting their priorities, given budget cuts, given market disruption, given impacts to their own organization? And reach out to them and say, look, when you're ready to re-engage, we're here to help you. In the meantime, here's a few things, whether they're articles, ideas, or resources that you think would be helpful to them, which leads back into, that value discovery conversation. Value is always changing, and the only value really is what the customers recognize. And so I think all organizations need to reset what value means to the customers. If you work in an innovation space where you can go tailor product and customize product in a certain way that adds value to that customer, go revalidate that. Look, in many organizations now, supply chains have been impacted. Product launches have been pushed out. There are certain industries that are seeing an uptick, particularly in the medical, biotech, robotics, and other areas where there's accelerating opportunities as a result of the impacts that, we're seeing here. Be curious, show some concern, show some care with your customers so that they know you're looking at and out at their business in total and want to be there as a resource, maybe as a broker of capabilities beyond what you can specifically deliver. And that will pay dividends down the road. None of the actions that you're looking to take need to have an immediate response of something of value to you, but that's relationship building. And then how you take that back into your own organization as a business development leader and say, look, here's what we're seeing from our large customers. Here's how their priorities have changed. Here's maybe a couple of things that we need to think about modifying how we do business so it makes it easier for them to do business with us.
You mentioned about these different roles, about sales leadership, business development, marketing, frontline sales, executive level, strategic level. When you work with an organization and you've got sort of this whole cast of characters that are in a client-facing or prospect-facing world, how do you assign the playbook for each of these roles? And then how do you ensure that everyone plays nice together? Marketing, business development, sales leadership.
Getting role clarity on account management is really crucial. And oftentimes you'll find out where the account management's not really connected to what sales is driving to go sell. That goes part of the alignment phase we talked about a few moments ago, is having a engaged, structured planning process, a business planning process with the customer to understand their initiatives, what's important to them, what's expected of you, the supplying organization, and then taking that back within your company and say, customer service, fulfillment, R&D needs to be aligned to help meet those needs. And that's where you can get the synergies of your team in customer service and account management to benefit the customer long term. The customer planning process, translating that back into internal expectations. And then really, one of the things we talk about in the accelerate phase is driving execution. And driving execution has two major dimensions. One of them is externally. Are you delivering what you said to the customer, particularly on the post-sales support and implementation? It's not about the product, services, solution, but do they see that you care how the implementation goes and the account management issues need to be addressed? That's one part of execution. The other part is internally, which goes back to selling and developing opportunities. Is the sales management culture one that they're driving a disciplined execution of their sales process? Do they have metrics? Are they coaching? Are they helping them, do their funnel reviews properly? How good are you at executing your sales process, your funnel reviews, and delivering on that internally? Those two elements of execution, internal and then external to customer, crucially important so that this doesn't flame out over time.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. Let me ask a little harsh reality question, because I'm envisioning the corporate folks listening to this, the sales leaders listening to this, and they may be hanging their head in shame. But feel free to come to their defense on this, Steve. All these questions that you just asked, there are sales leaders listening to that and said, well, if Steve came into our company and asked to see these numbers or these metrics, I'm not sure I'd have good numbers or good metrics, reliable, right? People aren't using the CRM. We have gaps in forecasting. We have gaps in record keeping. We're very transactional. So a lot of the strategic dashboard items remain empty or question marks. When you're going out and you're serving mid-sized to large sales organizations, what's their report card? And when you ask these kinds of questions, like, hey, can we look at the dashboard? Can we look at the metrics? Can we look at where are things working and where do things start to break down? Are most companies totally 100% on top of these numbers? Or is some of that clarifying, gosh, we don't even have our basic KPIs dialed in. You ask 5 different sales guys what the 5 different KPIs are, you will get 5 different answers. What's the state of the industry when it comes to that?
It's all across the board is the answer. What I see oftentimes is, and this goes back to, do you have a culture that really measures what they want to go manage? And is it a more of a mature organization that has learned the lessons of not being able to have disciplined sales processes connected back to operational processes to go drive things? But to specifically answer your question, I would say there's probably about a third of the organizations out there who've got metrics in place and tools and apps that provide them information, some of it integrated. There's another third of the companies out there that have disjointed systems, have part of it, know they can be doing better, aspire to do better, and then want to bring in folks to help them accelerate that. And there's probably another third out there that are just flying blind and they don't need to, in terms of they're just trying to sell their way out of an issue, or they're dealing with other problems. They're trying to find product market fit, or they're going through some other situation as well. The key is, what are the 3 or 4 metrics and items that are really going to go move the needle? What's our most important outcomes that we're trying to drive, and why are we not getting to that? And sometimes providing that bridge to help them get there is extremely valuable and impactful in a very short period of time.
And I'm guessing, Steve, that you've also seen with all these different software tools, and there's, of course, enterprise resource planning tools like SAP and so forth. Obviously, Salesforce, all these data tracking, sales tracking tools. Sometimes an executive will be overwhelmed with information, but starving for insight. How does your process of the strategic account management, kind of looking at it from the deck of the aircraft carrier, looking at it from the bridge of the aircraft carrier, how do you take this information that they may or may not know what to do with and translate that into actionable, executable insights where they can actually make money from it, both short-term and long-term?
Yeah, good question. The answer is connecting it back to what their customers are expecting from them. That's how you separate the noise from the signal, if you will, is your ability to understand what's going to enable you to go accelerate your momentum with your most important customers is what you should be focused on. If you don't know what that is, then that's your first job. Ignore the rest and start having deeper conversations with a broader set of influencers at your key customers, and then focus your internal resources on that. And it goes back to the purpose of having a program in place for your strategic customers, is that you want to become more customer-centric in how you do business and your processes. And it's your job as a sales executive or a business unit leader to be very clear on that, in addition to what other general management responsibilities you may have, whether that be product marketing, whether that be geographical in focus, or it is running a section of the sales team. So yeah, there isn't really longevity in being in a role where you can't articulate what your large customers or your most important customers are expecting from you and aligning your organization around that.
Well, let me also springboard off what you just said right there, because I think there's also some real good insights to be gained here. You talk about big deal management is different than large account management. And what is your definition of a quote unquote large account versus a quote unquote big deal, biggest deal in our company's history? This is going to be a record breaking deal. This is a huge deal, right? Whale hunting versus what we're talking about in this other arena. What's the difference there between large account versus big deal?
So it is, where are you in the time continuum? If you already have a large customer, they're a large part of your business, there's a different cadence to managing that account, meeting their expectations, maybe it's renewals. So managing that particular large account involves, operational organizations, customer service, what have you. When you're trying to penetrate new markets, new segments, attract new logos into your organization, that's going to help you accelerate your business strategy. That's where you do need a thoughtful strategy in terms of how do you want to go position with that particular opportunity. How do we create the differentiation? How do we make sure we understand decision-making? How do we go build the relationships that we need to? All the elements that go into putting a large deal in place is different exercise and different cadence than managing a specific large customer. And that's probably how you attracted and won that large customer 4, 5, 10 years ago. That new customer capture, the opportunity qualification, really identifying explicit needs, really understanding what value they're looking for and what their decision criteria are is crucially important in putting any large deal strategy together. And that can always be improved in most companies that I see out there.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned that we are recording this particular episode in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, and a lot of sales leaders and maybe even a lot of sales teams are taking the foot off the gas right now. Oh, it's a terrible environment to sell. Nobody's buying. We got to leave our customers alone, give them space to deal with all the craziness and all the competing priorities and so forth. Good time for sales leaders to be hiding under their desk? Bad time? Or is this the time where if we pivot, if we do the value analysis like you're talking about, is this a time to capture new customers with your new value prop that is 100% relevant to the hair on fire issues that they've got? Talk about sort of the pros and the cons, the dangers of going big during this time versus the dangers of hiding under your desk during this time.
Look, you need to stay relevant to your customers. And as we discussed, while their initiatives are changing, probably have been impacted depending which industry you're in and what space you're in, and you need to stay attuned to that and to pivot to that. So you can't hide and not engage with them. And most sales quotas have probably been impacted to some degree this year. So I don't think anyone's going to shy away from talking with their customers. But their ability, once again, to be sensitive to what has changed and how you need to change your messaging and position your value to what they're trying to accomplish is critically important. And the other element that's out there is there's a lot more virtual selling going on now by necessity. And so your ability to connect virtually, be efficient in your communications, and is more important than ever. And the sales executives that I'm talking with and a lot of account managers as well, they're actually getting more time with customers now than they did before because their customers are home. So your ability to be effective, both in being empathetic, being curious, and identifying where that value shift is occurring is crucially important. And so we're working with several customers in that realm to help them be more effective in a more of a virtual selling world. And it can be difficult because many of the customers I work with are in the advanced manufacturing space where there's a lot of co-development going on and nothing really replaces being side by side with folks kind of working through some product issues. But it's still possible to get many of those things done as well. So staying attuned, sensitive to what their needs are, leveraging virtual selling in an effective way can still develop and strengthen those relationships so that when we are back to more of a face-to-face sales environment, those relationships will be strengthened.
And I also want to make it really clear, because I know, Steve, you talk about this, that this isn't just for this pandemic situation. Any industry at any time might be going through some tectonic shifts, right? They might be going through some major technology disruptions, some major regulatory or compliance regulations that have totally changed the landscape of their world. Robotics or artificial intelligence or who knows what kind of technology disruption, competitive disruption, geopolitical disruption. So this isn't just a once in a lifetime thing. You teach your clients that they always need to be re-examining, rebooting, learning, unlearning, and relearning what is important to their customer at any given point in time so that they can show up with relevant, high-value solutions, correct?
That's right. And the question they need to ask themselves is, do we want to just strategically manage a handful of customers, which you can do with the right executive support and 3, 4, 5 customers, or do you want to have a program in place where you are managing a stable of strategic accounts? Because that's a whole different game. The nuance is really meaningful. There's one thing about managing a small handful of customers, for a 6-9 month period of time to get over a particular situation in the marketplace. It's a different thing altogether, Dave, to be managing a stable of strategic accounts and really manage those relationships to go further develop the potential that you could receive as a supplier and go create meaningful value so that you can help your customers win. 2 different games altogether.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything that I should have asked you that I did not ask you that you think is really important to our conversation today?
Ask yourself as sales leaders, product marketing leaders, and executives, do we want to really get serious about driving value with our customers with a bespoke program? Or are we just going to talk about it and go about business as usual? If you're trying to get a competitive advantage in the marketplace with as much change, complexity, and acceleration of change that's out there, you really do need a component in your sales organization that can engage and deliver value to customers in a whole different way than the rest of the sales team. Think about, do we have a strategy and do we have the resources and capabilities in place to go really execute on that? If not, feel free to reach out and I'd be glad to talk to you about some ideas so we can get you to the next level.
Well, that was my very next question, is that, Steve, this was so valuable and so enlightening, especially in light of our current upside down crazy time that we're in. How do people get connected and stay connected to more Steve Sienkiewicz brilliance? Where can we send people? And we're also going to link these up in the show notes directly under this episode at thespeakingshow.com. But where can we send people?
Yeah, best place is the website. It's accelerate-sales.com. That's ACCELERATE-sales.com. Or feel free to send me an email at steve@accelerate-sales.com. We have some resources on the website that talk about how you can take a look and examine your key account program and see how you might be able to take it to the next level.
Steve Sienkiewicz, you the man. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Dave, it's been a pleasure. Good talking with you.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.